Tonight, you will probably check your phone before you fall asleep. Not because you are expecting a message, not because there is anything urgent. You will check it because something inside you cannot stand the silence. And that feeling, that quiet, restless pull toward other people, is not a weakness. It is one of the oldest survival mechanisms your species has ever developed. You think you are afraid of loneliness, but you are not. Your body is afraid of death. For 99% of human history, being alone was not a lifestyle. It was a death sentence. No fire, no shelter, no one to watch your back in the dark. The savannah did not care about your feelings. It only cared about whether you were part of a group or not. And if you were not part of a group, you were gone. Fast. Your brain remembers this every single day. Neuroscientist John Cacioppo spent decades studying loneliness at the University of Chicago. What he found was not what most people expected. He found that loneliness does not just hurt your feelings, it changes your biology. Your immune system shifts, your cortisol spikes, your sleep fragments, your cardiovascular system works harder. Loneliness, Cacioppo argued, activates the same stress response as a physical threat. Your body treats social isolation the same way it treats a predator in the bushes. Think about that for a second. Your body cannot tell the difference between being alone on a Friday night and being stalked by something that wants to eat you. That is not a metaphor. That is physiology. Go back further. Before modern humans, before cities and language and agriculture, your ancestors lived in bands of roughly 50 to 150 people. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar calculated this number by mapping the size of primate social groups against the size of the neocortex, the thinking part of the brain. The bigger the social group an animal needed to survive, the larger its neocortex grew. And for humans, that number settled somewhere between 100 and 150 meaningful relationships. That number is now called Dunbar's number. It is not a social preference, it is a biological limit. Your brain was built to track, manage, and maintain a specific sized social world. When that world shrinks below a certain threshold, your nervous system starts sending alarms. Not metaphorical alarms. Real, physical, cellular alarms. Here is something even stranger. Researcher Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA ran a study called Cyberball. Participants played a simple virtual ball tossing game with two other players. At some point, the other players stopped passing the ball. They just left the participant out. No explanation, no argument, just exclusion. The part of the brain that lit up during this exclusion was the anterior cingulate cortex. That is the same region that processes physical pain. Being left out of a ball-tossing game, a game that did not matter, with strangers they had never met, activated the same neural machinery as a broken bone. Your brain does not have a separate department for social pain and physical pain. It uses the same alarm. Why would evolution build it that way? Because social pain needed to be taken seriously. Millions of years ago, if your group stopped including you, your survival odds plummeted. A system that made exclusion feel like injury was a system that made you fight to stay connected. The ancestors who felt that pain deeply stayed in their groups. The ones who did not feel it drifted away. And drifting away, out there, meant dying. So your descendants, the ones who survived, are the ones who felt it most. You are built from the most socially anxious humans who ever lived. That is why a passive-aggressive text message can ruin your entire afternoon. That is why being ignored at a party triggers something that feels wildly out of proportion. That is why you rehearse difficult conversations in your head for hours before they happen. Your brain is not being dramatic. It is running ancient threat detection software on a modern social world that it was never designed for. And the modern world has made this stranger, more complicated, more painful in ways that your ancestors never could have imagined. Researcher Amy Banks at Harvard Medical School studied what she calls the 4 pathways of connection: calm, accepted, resonant, and energized. Each one maps to a specific neurological circuit, and each one she found degrades when starved of real human contact. Not digital contact, not followers, not likes. Real, physical, co-present human connection. The kind where someone is actually in the room. Because here is what your ancient nervous system does not understand. A text message is not the same as a face. A notification is not the same as a touch. A reply is not the same as a voice. Your brain evolved in a world of physical proximity, warmth, breath, heartbeats, eye contact that lasted longer than half a second, shared silences that meant safety. Every substitution you make, every screen you use to simulate connection runs through circuits that were never built for it. And they know. Some deep, wordless part of your nervous system knows. And so the anxiety persists, even when you are technically surrounded by people, even when your phone never stops buzzing. You can be the most connected person on Earth in 2024 and still feel the thing Cacioppo described as the most dangerous condition a social animal can experience. Because the problem was never the number of people around you. The problem is whether your nervous system believes you are safe within your group. That belief, that felt sense of belonging, is what your ancestors needed. Not just the physical presence of others, but the trust that those others would not leave you behind. That if the darkness came, someone would stand with you. That your place in the group was secure. And somewhere underneath all the scrolling and the double tapping and the carefully worded messages you spend 20 minutes composing and then delete, that is still what you are looking for. Not a signal, not a notification. Safety, the ancient kind. Primatologist Franz de Waal spent his career studying bonding behaviors in great apes. Grooming, physical touch, shared meals. The long, slow rituals of proximity that apes use to maintain social bonds. He found that these behaviors were not just comfort, they were infrastructure. They were how a group stayed cohesive enough to survive. And in humans, he argued, the same systems persist. Just translated. Your conversation is grooming. Your shared meal is grooming. Your eye contact, your laughter, your sitting in the same room doing nothing in particular, all of it is the primate equivalent of picking through someone's fur. It sounds less romantic that way. It is also completely true. And here is the thing your ancestors never had to say out loud. None of this was optional. You could not decide to stop needing people. You could not evolve past the requirement, because the requirement was not a design flaw. It was the engine of human survival. The species that built fires together, raised children together, fought off threats together, grieved together. That species made it. Every solo act of heroism your culture celebrates is actually built on a foundation of deep, ancient, biological interdependence. You were never meant to do this alone. Not the work, not the grief, not the night. It is the oldest part of you, still doing its job, still scanning the dark, still making sure you are not alone. And after 300,000 years of human history, that part has never once been wrong to try.